Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zirkle and this video is about island biogeography. Island biogeography is the study of ecological relationships and distributions of species on islands. Island biogeography helps explain why New Guinea and Bali, which are both located in Southeast Asia, have different species richness. New Guinea has a higher species richness than Bali does. When islands form, usually through some sort of volcanic process, they aren't formed with fully functioning ecosystems. A series of successions has to take place. The islands are colonized by species that arrive from somewhere else. For example, some animals may be able to fly or swim to the new island from a nearby mainland. Plants may have seeds that can float on the water or which may be transferred on the wind or by birds. Whatever the case, the plant and animal species must arrive from somewhere. The species diversity on the new island depends on two major factors: the rate of new arrivals on the island, we'll call this immigration, and the number of species going extinct on the island. Initially on the empty island, the rate of immigration is going to be high, and the rate of extinction is going to be low because there aren't really many species on the island to go extinct. However, as new arrivals colonize the island, species will compete for resources and extinction rates will rise. At some point, the rates will balance each other in equilibrium. On the graph, that's the point where the two lines meet. Additionally, island biogeography tells us how distance affects species richness. If you have two equally sized islands, one close and one far from the mainland, you're going to find that the closer the island, the greater the rate of colonization or new arrivals. For example, in this graphic, you can see that 6 species colonized island 1, or the closer island, while only 2 species colonized island 2. Besides distance from the island, the size of the island is also important. Larger islands have a greater rate of colonization. And if you think about it, a bird flying over the open ocean has a greater chance of coming across a larger island than it does a much smaller one. You can see in our example that only 4 species colonized island 1, while 8 species colonized the larger island. Now, besides distance from the mainland and size of the island, there are several other factors that might affect how the new island is colonized, and thus the biodiversity that's present. First, the time the island has been in existence. Obviously, the longer the island has been in existence, the more species that will have had a chance to colonize it. Secondly, habitat suitability also plays a role. Does the island have a climate or current plant and animal composition that is suitable to new species arrivals? Serendipity also plays a role. This is the idea that chance occurrences may influence the arrival of species onto that island. For example, a hurricane might force a particular species of bird onto the island by chance. And finally, human activity may also play a role. Human beings are wild cards in the situation, and we really can't predict the effect that they're going to have. Okay, so we've discussed what island biogeography is, but we haven't discussed why it's important to us. Well, first, although we've been discussing it in terms of isolated islands, the theory of island biogeography really isn't only about islands in the ocean. It's about islands in the general sense of the word. That is to say, two habitats that may be cut off from one another. For example, two mountaintops, two ponds, or isolated forests. It's especially important because as human population has grown, we've taken vast areas of wilderness and divided them into smaller and smaller areas. This is called habitat fragmentation. Habitat fragmentation can cause a species to decline and eventually become extinct. Think about it this way. I mean, imagine that you were going to the grocery store one day and suddenly you found a huge wall between you and the grocery store. It's pretty hard for you to eat, right? It's the same thing here with habitat fragmentation. If you take a look at the images here, you can see that habitat fragmentation occurs in both pictures. On the left large areas of forest have been clear-cut so that only patches remain. On the right, a road has been built through the center of the forest. And you might think, well, it's only a minor inconvenience, that road, but for some species, they're not going to cross that road at all. One way to combat the loss of species is to build habitat corridors, which connect areas of land that have been fragmented. In the picture on the left, habitat has been created on an overpass to allow movement from one side of the highway to the other. On the right, you can see a series of thin, uninterrupted strips of forest that connect larger areas of forest in the distance. These are two of the three types of habitat corridors, with the third type being stepping stone corridors. You might want to take a moment and jot these types down. All right, so back to island biogeography. Island biogeography allows scientists to make informed decisions on when and where to place habitat corridors and which types of corridors to use. It's an important area of study that will only get more important as humans continue to fragment the habitat that plants and animals depend on. Okay, well, that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to us, and we'll see you soon.